We must follow the lessons of history and develop and then adopt new technologies to solve our hardest problems. With COVID, it's the race for better prevention, treatment and ultimately a vaccine. This is the only way to avoid economy-sapping shutdowns. In emissions reduction, it's the race for cost-effective, low and negative emissions technologies that will strengthen our economy, not weaken it. And that's why the government has undertaken to develop, fund and drive a low emissions technology roadmap. History's also shown us that you don't tax your way out of a challenge like this. Let's be clear. There are only two ways to reduce emissions. You either suppress emissions-intensive economic activities through some version of taxation, or you improve those activities. There is no third way. Australia can't and shouldn't damage its economy to reduce emissions. We shouldn't forget that when developing countries have been asked to sacrifice prosperity for the environment, they've typically prioritised prosperity. That was the lesson of Copenhagen. We can't ask them to make the trade-off. We should also remember that global emissions reduction is the ultimate goal here, with the Paris Agreement seeking to achieve net zero in the second half of this century for the globe, or preferably sooner. Now, the only pathway to global emissions reduction while strengthening prosperity is through developing low emissions technologies at lower cost than higher emitting alternatives. To that end, we have four core principles behind our work. The first, a relentless focus on outcomes. The second, the deployment of technology, not taxes. The third, respect for consumer choice. And fourth, a goal to maintain a balance of fuel and technology sources. We need more horses in the race, not less. In terms of outcomes, Australia has done remarkably well in emissions reduction in recent years. We're a world leader in renewable energy investment, deploying wind and solar at 10 times the global per capita average. Remarkably, the pandemic hasn't slowed this down. The Clean Energy Regulator forecasts that investment in new renewable energy generation in 2020 will match the 6.3 gigawatts or $9 billion of investment, the record set in 2019. As a result of this and other action by Australians, we've beaten our Kyoto targets by up to 430 million tonnes, which is almost a year's worth of emissions. Compare our track record with similar emissions-intensive export-oriented countries, developed nations like Canada and New Zealand, and the results are stark.